At my mom's birthday, my sister said, "Nobody wants to hear your 5-month-old baby cry through dinner." My dad added, "Next time do us all a favor and skip it." I calmly replied, "Then I'll skip paying your bills too." They were still laughing when I walked out, but not for long. The last thing I expected was to be humiliated in front of my entire family while holding my 5-month-old son in my arms. I wasn't late. I wasn't causing a scene. I walked into that restaurant with a wrapped gift in one hand and Noah's car seat in the other, thinking I was doing the right thing, showing up, being present, trying. But the moment I stepped up to the table, I knew I wasn't welcome. No one said it outright at first. They didn't have to. Lindsay just looked at me, then at Noah, like I'd brought a ticking time bomb to dinner. My dad barely acknowledged me at all. My younger cousin whispered something to her boyfriend and they both smirked. My mother smiled, but it was the kind of smile people give to avoid awkward questions, not because they're happy to see you. I should have left right then. I had dressed Noah in a soft little sweater, even though he'd outgrown it. It was the only nice thing that still fit. I'd packed toys, snacks, 2 changes of clothes. I did everything I could to keep him calm and quiet. But babies are babies. He let out a soft cry just as the waiter arrived to take orders. Not a scream. Just a tired, fussy sound. Lindsay pushed her chair back and said it loud enough for half the room to hear. "Nobody wants to hear your baby cry through dinner." Then, like they'd rehearsed it, my dad added without looking at me, "Next time, do us all a favor and don't come." And that was it. That was the moment I realized I wasn't just a single mom to them. I was a burden. My child, their grandson, their nephew, was an unwanted guest at his own grandmother's birthday. So I looked right at them and said, "Then I'll skip paying your bills too." They laughed. My sister actually rolled her eyes. My dad sipped his drink. But the laughing didn't last long. No one at that table knew the full picture. They didn't know that Lindsay's tuition was getting covered every semester because I had added her to my student loan forgiveness job benefit, which meant the payments came out of my check every month. She was in her 3rd year, and without me she couldn't even register for spring. They didn't know that the family credit card they used for gas and groceries was linked to my account, because Dad ruined his credit 5 years ago and I quietly stepped in. They didn't know I paid the overdue balance on their utilities in August, or that I covered Lindsay's dance intensives last summer because she was too embarrassed to ask our parents. They just thought I was the one who made bad choices. The one who got pregnant too young, who worked too much, who brought a baby to dinner like that was some kind of offense. I didn't bother explaining any of it. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't argue. I reached into my bag, pulled out the box with the necklace and set it on the table in front of my mother. Then I picked up Noah, walked past the waiter who was just arriving with our drinks, and left. The door hadn't even closed behind me before I heard Lindsay laughing again. That sound stuck with me all the way to the car. But 2 days later the laughter stopped. 2 days later my phone started buzzing while I was warming a bottle. I didn't check it right away. Noah had finally settled into a nap schedule, and I'd learned the hard way that everything else could wait. By the time I picked up my phone, there were 6 missed calls and a string of messages from Lindsay. At first they were short. "Did you do something? My school says my payment didn't go through. Call me now." Then they turned frantic. "Kate, this isn't funny. They put a hold on my account. I can't register for next semester." I stared at the screen longer than I expected to. Not because I felt guilty, but because part of me was surprised she was shocked. As if money had just appeared out of thin air all these years. As if it wasn't coming from the sister she'd just told to stop showing up. I didn't reply. An hour later my dad called. I let it ring. Then my mom. Then my aunt. Then my cousin who had smirked at the table. The pattern was obvious. They were connecting the dots in real time. That evening I got an email notification confirming the cancellations. University payment reversed. Dance Academy auto payment stopped. Family card unlinked. Everything clean. Everything final. I wasn't angry while doing it. That surprised me the most. I felt calm. Like I'd finally put something heavy down. The next day Lindsay showed up at my apartment. I hadn't given her my new address. That meant she'd asked our mom. She knocked like she owned the place. No text. No warning. Just entitlement. When I opened the door she went straight into talking. About stress. About deadlines. About how unfair the system was. She didn't mention the restaurant. She didn't mention Noah. She didn't apologize. She just said, "I need you to turn everything back on." I told her I wasn't paying anymore. She looked at Noah, asleep on my shoulder, then back at me. "You can't do this to me." I told her she already decided what she could and couldn't tolerate. I was just adjusting accordingly. She called me dramatic. Said I was punishing everyone over one comment. Said family doesn't do this to each other. That was when I finally spoke up. Family doesn't tell a mother her baby isn't welcome. She left without another word. That night, my dad sent a message saying I was selfish. That I was tearing the family apart. That mom was crying. I didn't respond. Because for the first time I realized something they never understood. I wasn't breaking the family. I was just done being the only one holding it together. By the end of the week, everything was unraveling. Lindsay's university sent her an official warning about withdrawal from the spring term due to non-payment. She had already missed the window for the payment plan, and now she was stuck unless she paid the full amount up front, which I knew she couldn't. Her scholarships covered only a portion. The rest had always come from the benefit tied to my job. Quietly, automatically, she posted something vague on her Instagram story that day, about how some people change when they have a baby and forget who really helped them. It didn't have my name on it, but she didn't need to tag me. People knew. I stayed off social media after that. I wasn't going to play that game. Then came the second wave, the money fallout at home. Dad called me while I was at the grocery store and left a voicemail asking why his card was declined at the gas station. Not angry, not yelling. Confused. The next day I got a long email from my mother. No blame. No defense. Just a quiet list of everything I'd been doing that no one had thanked me for. And then at the very bottom, "I'm sorry for not saying anything at dinner. I should have stopped them." I didn't reply, not because I was angry with her, but because I didn't know what to say anymore. The silence from me seemed to make them panic more. My aunt texted a weird guilt trip about how I was teaching Noah to hold grudges from the crib. My uncle tried the passive-aggressive approach. Said he hoped I'd be at peace with myself after all the damage I'd caused. Even my cousin messaged me asking if I'd at least help Lindsay through finals because she's really struggling mentally. Struggling mentally. The irony. I'd spent the past 5 months managing night feeds, returning to work early, paying for diapers, formula, daycare. All of it alone. No one offered help. No one asked how I was coping. But now that the funding dried up, they suddenly cared about stress. The funniest part was, no one ever asked what made me walk out of that dinner in the first place. Not once did someone say, "What did they say to you? Why did you leave?" It was always about the consequences, not the cause. Noah slept beside me most nights now. I kept the house dim after 8, played soft music in the evenings. He'd started giggling when I made weird faces and holding his bottle for a few seconds at a time. He had no idea what was happening outside of us, and I was grateful for that. The house was quiet, peaceful. I hadn't known how loud they all were until they were gone. A week after everything blew up, Lindsay showed up again. This time she was crying before I even opened the door. She had a manila folder in her hand. I recognized the university logo on it immediately. She started talking before I could say anything. She was going to lose her spot in the program. Her advisor said without payment by the end of the month, she'd have to take a leave of absence, and with her track record that probably meant not coming back. She had no one else to help. Our parents couldn't co-sign a loan. She tried applying on her own and got denied. She even admitted she applied for a high-interest personal loan from some sketchy app. She got rejected too. I didn't say a word. Just stood there holding Noah while she unraveled in my doorway. Then she asked if she could come in. I let her. We sat at the table, Noah in his bouncer beside me, and for the first time in years, Lindsay looked small. Not sharp or sarcastic. Just stuck. She didn't beg. She didn't yell. She just asked why I hadn't told her all those years what I was doing for her. I told her it wouldn't have mattered. She never would have believed she needed help. She always talked like everything was earned, deserved, like the world owed her her dreams just because she was the talented one. She said something then I didn't expect. "You always looked like you had it handled. You never needed anything." I wanted to laugh. Not because it was funny, but because that's what they all thought. That if I didn't complain, I must be fine. That needing help was something loud and visible. But I wasn't fine. I hadn't been fine for a long time. I'd been holding everyone up while barely keeping myself together. They thought because I was quiet I wasn't drowning. He said she was sorry. Not in a dramatic way. Just quiet. And for a second I saw the little sister I used to protect when our parents were fighting in the kitchen, and she'd hide under the covers in my bed. But I didn't offer to pay again. I just listened. When she left, I handed her the envelope with the necklace I had meant for Mom, the rose gold one I left on the table. I had taken it back when I walked out that night, not to be petty, but because I knew they didn't deserve something that personal anymore. I told Lindsay to give it to Mom. No explanation. The next day I got a message from my mother. Just one line. I miss you. Want to see Noah. I stared at it for a long time. She'd stayed out of the mess mostly. She hadn't asked me to fix anything, hadn't guilted me. Maybe she was realizing what I already knew. That family doesn't mean constant sacrifice by one person so everyone else can feel comfortable. I replied, just you. No one else. She answered immediately, of course. I didn't tell anyone else I'd spoken to her. That was the first boundary I drew. And the first one they didn't try to cross. Mom came over that Sunday afternoon. Alone. No makeup, no polished look like she usually wore to family gatherings. She brought a small bag of groceries and a blanket she'd crocheted while she was recovering from surgery last year. For Noah, she said. We didn't talk much at first. She sat on the couch while he played on his mat, babbling and flapping his arms like he was telling her all his secrets. I watched her watch him. That was the moment I realized she hadn't held him since he was 2 months old. Every visit had been rushed, distracted, always with other people around. She looked older now, more tired than I remembered. Maybe because for once she didn't have anyone around to keep up appearances for. After a while she asked me if I was okay. I told her yes, mostly. I didn't say it's been hard, even though it has. I didn't say I'd cried myself to sleep some nights, or that there were moments I felt completely invisible. I didn't say it because I didn't want to be pitied. I just wanted to be seen. She told me she'd been thinking a lot since the dinner. That she hadn't realized how much I'd been doing. That she felt ashamed for not defending me when it mattered. I could tell she meant it. There was no performance in her voice, no defense. Just truth. She said she knew Dad and Lindsay were angry now. But maybe that's what happens when you've been relying on someone without realizing you were relying on them. That line stuck with me. She also told me something I didn't know. That Dad had already tried to apply for a new credit card and got denied again. That Lindsay had an unpaid balance with her dance school that might keep her from performing at the winter showcase. And that the rest of the family, well, they weren't doing as well as they pretended to be. Apparently I'd been the glue for a long time. Quiet, invisible glue. Then she asked what I was going to do next. I said I was going to keep things the way they were. No more money. No more rescuing. No more pretending like I didn't hear the comments. Or that I didn't notice how I was treated like the outsider just because I didn't follow their version of the plan. I had my son now. That changed everything. He would grow up in a house where being needed didn't mean being used. Mom didn't argue. She just nodded. Then she reached over and picked Noah up, and for a few minutes the house felt warm again. Not because we fixed everything, but because for once someone came into my space without expecting anything. Before she left, she said something else. Something that hit me harder than anything Lindsay had said or Dad or the rest of them. I should have protected you more. I didn't answer. I just stood in the doorway and watched her walk back to her car. She didn't ask me to forgive them. She didn't ask me to call anyone. She didn't ask for anything at all. That was the difference. And that was the moment I knew. This wasn't just a pause in the relationship with the rest of the family. It was the beginning of something else entirely. A new version of my life. After that visit, the silence became permanent. Lindsay stopped calling. My dad didn't message again. No one tried to show up at my door. The group chat I had muted weeks ago finally went quiet. I didn't delete it. I wanted the silence to stay there, visible. Like a reminder. Mom visited once a week, never missing it. She brought simple things. A pack of diapers, a meal she cooked, sometimes just herself. She never asked about Lindsay or Dad. We never spoke about them again, like a quiet agreement had formed between us. They had made their choices and now we had made ours. In December, Noah took his first steps. Wobbly, clumsy, perfect. I recorded it on my phone and almost sent it to the family group. Almost. Then I remembered the way Lindsay looked at him like he was a disruption. The way my dad said not to come back. So I sent it only to my mom. She wrote back one line. He's walking into a better life. Christmas came. I didn't hear from anyone else. I didn't reach out. My mom came over in the morning, brought a little tree, and watched Noah open his first real gift. A cloth tunnel she could barely stop him from crawling through. That was all I needed. No one apologized. No one came around with clarity or regret. I didn't expect them to, because people like that don't change when they lose your help. They change when they lose your access. And now they had none. Lindsay never paid her tuition. She took the leave. Her Instagram went dark. Dad probably found someone else to help float his bills, or maybe he didn't. Either way, it wasn't my problem anymore. The best part was I never once regretted walking away. Not when money got tight. Not when I missed a deadline. Not when I spent a Friday night alone, rocking Noah to sleep while the world outside kept spinning. Because for once I was building something for us. Not just maintaining something broken for everyone else. People talk a lot about revenge. About making them feel what you felt. But this wasn't that. This wasn't about hurting them back. This was about choosing peace. And peace, I learned, is something you don't get from being loved by the wrong people. It comes from finally loving yourself enough to walk away. That night at the restaurant, I walked out holding a baby they treated like a burden. Now I wake up every morning beside the best thing I've ever done. And I've never looked back.